It has been over 3 years since one of the most anticipated remakes released, from a game that revolutionized the RPG genre and how stories can be told through video games. A game that showed both old and new fans that Final Fantasy wasn't a thing of the past, but a franchise getting back up on their feet again after so many missteps and mistakes. Final Fantasy VII completely changes how remakes can be executed to not only stay true to the source material, but add improvements and necessary changes that makes playing the remake worth it over the original experience, such as new story events that can add to the stakes while sticking close to the same plot points as before. And with the second iteration in this trilogy, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, quick on our heels to improve upon everything the first part built, it's appropriate to say that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth absolutely cannot fail in its execution. Rebirth will be the most important game in this trilogy. If you're a fan of the original and you've at least somewhat paid attention to the remake story, you'll come to the realization that this is not your Final Fantasy VII you remember. It may have the same name and characters, but the original game that you remember isn't the same as the re-trilogy. Yoshinori Kitase, the producer of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, has reiterated numerous times about the direction the story will take, stating that the game will shake things up from the original but won't go wildly out in a way that doesn't lead into Advent Children. Pretty much saying that story events will not only be rearranged, but will also be getting new story beats in general. We've somewhat already seen this with the remake and how it wasn't completely one for one from the OG. For example, when going up to the plate with Jessie to investigate why her bomb potency was so high, getting to visit her house for a brief time, and even getting a lot more time with Biggs and Wedge, where in the original we only ever hear one line of concern from Jessie about her bombs, and then it's never explored again. Hell, Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie all got more screen time and development this time around. Point is, it's already been shown that the story is going to take different turns and even shock us completely. With so many crucial moments this part is supposed to adapt, which if I'm not mistaken is up to the Forgotten City or the City of the Ancients, Rebirth will be the most crucial part in convincing fans both old and new whether this trilogy is worthy of the original's legacy. During the story of Remake, we're introduced to a new set of beings called Whisperers, who control the flow of fate, or destiny, however you want to call it, and ensure that the timeline of set events aren't tampered with. And as such, throughout the game, you would see them get in Cloud and company's way whenever they would stray from the original game's path. And by the end of the game, the crew was able to defeat and get rid of these Whisperers entirely, creating a whole new timeline of a world boundless in its freedom of possibilities. That then brings us to the adaptation of Rebirth. From what the devs have confirmed, it will take us from the calm flashback all the way to the City of the Ancients. That within itself is a large chunk of the game, and to put it into perspective, in the OG, the Midgar section of the game was 5 hours, whereas in the remake it spans an entire 35 hours. And the section that Rebirth will adapt was 15-ish hours from the start of Calm to the City of the Ancients. That may or may not be rearranged, we really don't know. Not only that, but new story beats may also be in the game that completely change its flow. When I find myself replaying the original, there were a lot of areas, even back then. And to think Rebirth is going to have to do all that on a larger scale kind of baffles me, as someone who's only ever daydreamed of seeing these areas done in a modern age. Like, I can't even imagine what the gold saucer will look like just roaming around each section, like the minigame area all the way to the Coral Prison. And even playing the original, I had to take a step back and ask myself,
were you blinded by its majesty?
No, but really, my hope is that they can pull off the pacing just right for Rebirth, to allow us to experience each area equally as much. Maybe even more than before. But even as excited as I am for the next big part, I'm also kind of skeptical in a sense that if they somehow mess this up on any level, whether it's in its pacing, story, or just trying to balance their new plot points with what's already there, this game can really make or break someone's opinion of the trilogy and whether they want to continue or not. If Remake was setting the stage for what we could expect, Rebirth would be proving to us that their new vision can stand on its own feet and deliver something that rivals the original game. Rebirth is adapting some of the most important scenes and moments in gaming period, like the Nibelheim flashback where we see the backstory of Cloud and Sephiroth in their investigation of the Nibelheim reactor, or my personal favorite that gets swept under the rug by many, but the scene where Cloud has a meltdown after the Temple of the Ancients and Barrett gives him such a profound speech and pep talk that transcends the game. It's such a heartwarming moment that shows how far their relationship has come since Midgar. And lastly, the scene that everybody everybody knows. That scene that showed us that games have hands and can make us have such strong emotions for not only the game, but its characters. That game narratives could be so much more than what they were. Moving swiftly along, I want to speak on the new elements of the story in Rebirth and how that may serve the narrative going forward. For instance, the most obvious being Zack and the role he'll have in this new timeline. Our boy was resurrected from the dead, as we all know, but now being in an alternate timeline than the Terrier timeline our crew is from. Yes, I know, it's Kingdom Hearts BS, but it's cool Kingdom Hearts BS. What I think will happen is while we move forward with our main crew, we'll call them Team A, the game will occasionally switch back to Zack's perspective, giving us a glimpse as to what he's been up to. Now, here is where the theorizing will get crazy, so stick with me. Zack in this new timeline will eventually find out what Sephiroth has been up to after the events of the Nibelheim incident. And since Zack seems to still have his sense of self compared to his homie Cloud, I think Zack will catch on to Sephiroth's plans a little faster than Team A. After all, Zack knows Sephiroth most of all. And so following that, he'll embark on a similar journey as Team A did, gathering allies to his cause and building a team similar to ours, until our paths eventually converge, creating a reunion? Look, I had to do it. But I know one thing is absolutely sure. The devs will not pass up the chance for Zack and Aerith to meet at least one more time before whatever sad fate befalls them. Well, knowing how these Final Fantasies go. But again, we all know what everyone and their uncles, dads, cats, and dogs are waiting for. That scene that hit us harder than dad's belt, and boy oh boy was I distraught as a kid trying to understand what I had just witnessed. An innocent flower peddler that you met at the beginning of the game and spent 20 long hours on an adventure with is murdered right in front of you. That realization kicks in and you suddenly feel despair, that same despair Cloud is feeling, as Aerith falls to the floor and her theme kicks in. With Sephiroth now towering over you, the team is truly defeated in this moment. Cloud couldn't be the hero. He failed yet again, and if Sephiroth was the board the crew was playing on, we were the pieces in his game. We were the puppets. And it's that type of feeling that I really want to experience again with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. As much as I dread seeing Aerith meet her demise once again, I feel like this moment is crucial in the storytelling of Final Fantasy. It's the catalyst to the team finding out that there is a way to stop Sephiroth, that even though Aerith was gone, she was still helping them, fighting with them as if she was right next to us. And as bad as this sounds, it was through her death that the team came to realize that even with loss in life, that the people you love, the people you lose are always with you no matter what happens. And it is through that same love that Cloud finds his identity again through his acceptance, his comrades, and Tifa. Final Fantasy VII is ultimately about loss, love, and identity. And if Rebirth can't at least adopt those same themes, then it is not my Final Fantasy. The point is, this section of the trilogy is a game you don't want to fail on. It's a game that represents the rising action before its climax, and it should be written in a way that doesn't take away from what made the original special. The wonder, the mystery of the journey, and the heartbreak. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is not only the most important part of the story, but the turning point that leads into the final half of the game. In Maximilian Dood's words, this is the Empire Strikes Back section of the Remake trilogy. The crew will start their journey on a high note with the notion that if they can just find Sephiroth and stop him, all will be fine, and end at their lowest, most defeated by the end of this game, realizing that we were playing into Sephiroth's hands all along. He can't be stopped. The crew is unsettled, Sephiroth has the black materia, Cloud is a puppet, and Aerith is gone. This is the Han Solo getting frozen, Luke getting his hand cut off, Luke I am your father type moment of a sequel and follow-up to a great remake. And again, it absolutely cannot fail. What this game sets to deliver will determine how the rest of the trilogy will go. After all, it's the turning point within the story where big twists will occur and revelations will be made. We'll also be going to numerous locations like Gold Saucer, Junon, and...
Me? 更ガガ
which is already 3 times as many locations as Remake Part 1. Yeah, I can count. So by now, it's safe to say that the hype is in full effect. Hell, I would even say this is the most hype I've been for a game since, well, I mean, I guess Final Fantasy 16. Well, it hasn't been that long, but you know, you get it. For me, Final Fantasy has been a big part of my life since my early teens, and anytime a big numbered Final Fantasy came out, it was as if the world had stopped and you had to play this game. You knew that once you started playing, you were getting top tier storytelling that would never let you go. Whether it was going to make you feel epic, make you happy, or completely just destroy you mentally. It was crystal clear that you were in for a ride, and to that point, it is in my best interest to trust the team and their vision to realize this special 1997 video game into the modern age and give us a journey worthy of Final Fantasy VII, maybe even surpass it. So as we count down the days to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, let's take a step back and realize something important, that we're supposed to feel anxious, worried, and scared, and that's the point. That's what the devs want. They'll put us in the shoes of Cloud once again like it was their first time telling us, the reunion at hand may bring joy, it may bring fear, but let us embrace whatever it brings.